and welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with UATV. The military intelligence of Ukraine has recorded preparations for the transfer of nuclear weapons from the territory of the Russian Federation to the territory of temporarily occupied Crimea. At the same time, the Russian armed forces began massive military exercises in Crimea in parallel with drills staged by Western countries near the Russian border. To talk more about this, we're joined in the studio today by retired U.S. Navy Captain Gary Tabach. Hello, and thank you for joining.
Thank you for inviting me.
So, first of all, likewise. First of all, let's talk about the fact that the Russian Ministry of Defense is holding large-scale exercises on the territory and near the territory of annexed Crimea, with a lot of armed forces participating. Now, why is Russia trying to
show force?
Not to show force, but to enlarge its presence in Crimea? Is it so afraid that Ukraine is going to try to take it back using force?
No, I don't think so, because the Ukrainian force is nowhere comparable to the Russian force. It's just a large Soviet army will be fighting, or small Soviet army would be fighting against the large Soviet army, which is not pragmatic. However, I don't want to speculate on things, but usually civilized countries do not turn resort areas, international resort areas, into polygons for testing military equipment or grounds for the exercises of military exercises.
So is it a kind of a message to Ukraine?
I think it's a message to
the
everyone.
rest of Europe,
insecurity.
to NATO.
If it is a message, it's a very insecure message, saying, "Hey, we have a huge military. We can fight. We can defend this land." But I don't think it's serious in the sense. First of all, I do not think that Putin fights wars this way. His KGB mentality does not let you go, as you say, head to head. But it's more of a diversion, and it's more of a provocation on his part, I think. I think also it is, Putin just lost a huge battle, political battle. I mean, he just lost huge with the Trump investigation, that it came to a conclusion that he really, what we say, snatched the defeat right out of hands of victory. Usually snatched the victory out of hands of defeat. But he did because he was able to convince the whole world. He was able to convince Ukrainians. He was able to convince half of our country, especially mass media, that he was the agent of Putin, that Trump was agent of Putin, that Putin was controlling everything, that he elected the president, not the American people. That's how powerful the man is. And now that bubble just blew up. So what else can he do? How else can he show influence in this world?
Just flex army muscles?
Yeah, economically he's weak. Politically he's weak. He's not invited anywhere. He's not invited to Poland to mark the beginning of World War II. And of course, in the Russian or Soviet mentality, it's them who won the war. And they're not being invited. That's another slap. So he lost on a lot of fronts. So now all he can do is flex a muscle, showing, okay, it's not only cartoons that I'm showing to you. I can actually deploy a large force to Crimea.
But then again, there is NATO that can also deploy.
There is no need for NATO to deploy. Black Sea has no strategic importance. And Black Sea is surrounded by NATO countries. They can shoot without fleet being there. They can shoot across easily. So they don't even need to deploy. Again, deploying only to show support for Ukraine. Our ships, NATO ships, their presence in the Black Sea is simple political statement that we support Ukraine in their endeavor.
So basically, the fact that NATO is building up its military presence in the countries that are surrounded by that are surrounding the Black Sea shore is just another message to Vladimir Putin that we can fight you back?
Well, no, it's the message that we don't agree with you. We think what you're doing is you're interrupting a world balance that we tried to create since World War II. That the borders should not be violated, that sovereign countries should remain sovereign. You want to give independence to someone, give independence to Chechens.
Right.
Why are you trying to give independence to Crimeans when they don't ask you for it?
To the country that is already independent,
right, to the one
and has been independent.
The one that you guaranteed that you're going to protect, and you're attacking. If you don't want countries to join NATO, don't attack them. Simple as that. Don't threaten them, because the more you threaten them, the more they're trying to go into NATO. Now Finland is thinking about it. They're trying to do that. Next probably will be Kazakhstan, right? Could
be, but let's
not Russia, right?
Yes, let's not put ideas into Putin's head. All right. Nevertheless, besides of building up military presence by NATO countries, there is also another way of letting Putin know that the rest of the world does not agree with what he is doing, and that is economical sanctions. You have mentioned already that Russia is economically weak. Now, how much does Russia suffer, or the Kremlin itself suffer from the sanctions that are being imposed by EU, by the US?
Well,
onto
Russia is a huge thing. So how much the Kremlin and their inner circle suffers, I'm not sure. But now I know that there has been an investigation launched, and I believe President Trump ordered for our Department of Justice to investigate where Putin's money and his inner circle's money are, and what to do with it, and how to sanction that, and that's pretty upsetting probably for Putin's friends. The people, the common people, the 99.9% of the country outside of Moscow, they probably do not suffer much, because their lives for them has not really changed since.
Yeah, they have been poor, and they remain poor.
They lived off their plants,
the land, right.
and they continue to live that way. They continue to have no roads, no hot water, no hospital. Things hasn't changed for them for 5,000 years.
Okay, so basically the situation has changed only for the top oligarchs that are
maybe,
inside of the inner circle of Vladimir Putin and his family.
I think so, and I think it's probably I don't like to speculate on these things, but maybe that minute middle class that's there is also probably affected. And the migrants that come to work to Moscow anyway, the help that would come from the former Soviet republics, including Ukraine, they'll just go somewhere else. And Ukrainians now can go to Europe, so there's no point for them to go and earn money in Russia. They can go to European countries to do that.
Okay, so basically, as it turns out, that the sanctions are only hurting the rich mass of people living in Russia, or for that matter, in the capital of Russia, just Moscow. Well, maybe somewhere in the St.
Well, it depends
Petersburg.
which sanctions. We have plenty of sanctions, but American sanctions, the U.S. sanctions, were never meant to hurt the people. It was meant to hurt
there was a list of people,
industries, and the certain people that are in support of Putin's policies.
But does it influence the economical state of affairs in Russia?
Sure, it does. You can tell if I'm sure you and I, we have plenty of Russian friends who now say, you know what, they say that it doesn't affect, but I can't get good cheese or good milk for my kids. I can't get quality products. I have a friend who is in the oil and gas business, and he's saying there's some sort of a seal, rubber seal, that they used to get from the United States in order to drill, but now it's sanctioned, and they can't get it from China. They can't produce one like that themselves because it rips, it breaks. It's not working. So there's plenty of Russian high-tech industry that's coming to a halt. You can't be in today's world. You can't be isolated.
That's true.
You just can't. You can't find. No matter how much you say, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to build it ourselves. We're going to produce it ourselves. Yes, you probably can produce a hammer yourself, but in today's high-tech world, you can't. All this cannot be produced in Ukraine. You have to have a consolidation of different states and different strength. You have to have Japanese, Chinese. You have to have all kinds of different countries, and you have to be friends with them.
I agree. So in this situation that Russia ended up in right now, meaning the sanctions and all that, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, does it look like an attempt to economically fight back? And how high are the chances that it could be successful?
I don't know, because it's not my field of expertise.
I know you're not energy expert.
I know only, but I can only tell you this, that not only Russia is being isolated by others, Russia is very good at isolating itself themselves. So many things that Russia does is not to benefit themselves. a lot of things Putin does, and he's in a circle does, is not to benefit themselves, but to hurt others. So, there's this old Russian saying.
So this is just a mentality thing.
Right. I don't care if my cow dies, as long as my neighbor's cow dies, right?
As well, right.
Right, as well. As long as he's poor, I don't want to be rich. I'll be as sick as well as he is. So the Northern Pipe, in my opinion, is, you can take it for whatever it is that it's not to enrich Russia, it's to hurt Ukraine.
That's it.
That's it.
So basically, the Kremlin or Vladimir Putin himself would go into all that expense, all that political turmoil just to hurt Ukraine because Ukraine were not willing to surrender?
Well, we're trying to put our somewhat healthy mentality into a mentality of somebody who's sick, somebody who's Stalin, somebody who's Hitler, somebody who's paranoid, somebody who's been poisoned by power, by too much power for too long, and we're trying to think the way they think. We can't. We're trying to think the way we're not programmed to think. And yes, Hitler was willing to destroy Germany as long as he would prove that everybody's the enemy. He's paranoid. Stalin was killing everybody around him because he was paranoid, because everybody's the enemy. They don't think the way we do. It's not necessarily to... I understand people who will steal something, they will steal this glass because it would look nice in their apartment, because they benefit from it somehow, personally. But there are some people who will just break the glass because they don't want you to have it.
And you should not have it.
Right.
Either.
And
okay.
That mentality, that paranoia gets on and on and on and on. And the longer he's in power, the more dangerous he is in ability to break that glass.
All right. Well, according to Ukrainian intelligence, Russia has been supplying latest communicative mobile systems to Donbas. Why do you think that is being done? Because
it is the biggest weakness in the chain of military in Russia. They've learned that during their military operations in Georgia. That's why they ordered Mistrals from France. Mistrals they didn't need them in that region as a helicopter landing platforms. They needed that as communication centers, as command and control centers. Which communications in the military is very complicated, and a lot of people think that people just go and fight and shoot in tanks and airplanes. No, all of that together is put by the communications, by the satellites, by the comms. It's a very, very important part of the military operations. But it also is a very important part of operations when you jam them. And what the Ukrainians, I believe, now are worried about, that they will not be able to jam them in a sufficient way, the Russian communications in Crimea. Although I have seen at the show, at your latest military show, quite a bit of progress in advance in the high tech of Ukrainian military. And I remember I saw the jamming equipment called, I believe it was called Nota, made by Tritel, a Ukrainian company.
There is such a company in Ukraine.
There is such a company, right, so I'm not mistaken. And they showed me all kinds of different aspects of that equipment and how it could be mobile, it could be stationary, it could be out of airplanes, out of trucks, it could be operating. And it was jamming. Well, they showed me the testing was quite well. So hopefully Ukrainian military will apply something like that. Of course, Ukraine has friends. Ukraine is not the only country in this world that has to, trying to survive on its own. It has plenty of good friends that have high-tech technology and that will probably, and I'm sure, not probably, I'm sure will be willing to help.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me again. I think your channel is very important for the American-speaking community in the world to hear the Ukrainian side of the story.
Thank you so much. That's why we're working. That's why we exist, because we want to bring the true story to the rest of the world. Thanks. That was retired U.S. Navy Captain Gary Tabach. Thank you so much for watching UATV. Stay tuned for more.